Thank you, Sabina. You did quite a lot of work that I don't have to now, so that's I'm very grateful. I should get my excuses in early. I'm terrible at PowerPoint. Your nearest exit might be behind you. So, what do I do? Here we go. So, I'm going to tell you the story of BT Sport, and everything I'm about to show you comes from a producer's lens. Everybody's told them a bit about themselves. So, I'm a producer by trade, and when it comes to workflows and this kind of system, maybe enthusiastic amateur might best describe me. So Sabina also mentioned that we tackled this project without consultants. So we asked all our team leaders to give up their time to help us build Provys. Anyway, so here's a little bit of the history of, thank you very much. Here's a little bit of the history of BT Sport. So in June 2012, shortly before the London Olympics, BT entered the very murky world of Premier League rights, and we secured 42 matches. Now, that was just the start, because obviously 42 matches actually just buys us that. So there's a week schedule. It's a very sad looking thing. We had, as you can imagine, we had an awful lot to do, because our launch date was August 13th. So we had just over a year to sort everything out, which was also, as well as filling the rest of that grid and 52 more like it, times that by 3, because we launched with 3 channels. So we had an awful lot to do. The next thing to do was pick a production partner. So we had 3 companies pitching for the privilege of doing our production for us. One was ITV, and they suggested the London studios, and we went to London studios. And they said, on a Tuesday you can have Studio 3, and on a Saturday you can have Studio 7, your post-production's over here, and your production office is over there. By the time we left the building, our heads were spinning, we just didn't know what the hell was going on. Sunset and Vine said, come to Media City, up in Salford, so we went and had a look, and it was beautiful. I mean, it's only just been built, ITV are there, BBC are there. It's a beautiful place, but it's in Salford. Nobody wanted to go to Salford. IMG said, come to Stockley Park. We didn't know where it was. You know, to give IMG credit, it does look much better now, so I'm told. However, as you can see from that photograph, the ceilings are incredibly low. So that was the first thing we did. We looked at the ceilings and we thought, you know, how are we going to get a light rig in there, for example, and not bang our heads? So that wasn't quite right. So there was North One, who do our MotoGP for us, had written a tiny little line in their tender. They didn't want all of our business. They just wanted the MotoGP. They said, "Have you thought about the broadcast centre at the Olympic Park?" And we hadn't. So we went and had a look. And that is it. I mean, as you can see, it's absolutely massive, and we've got, I don't know, maybe an eighth of it. Possibly, maybe not even that, it's so huge. Anyway, so in a now famous meeting with the then CEO of BT, when we went to pitch him the idea, we all thought BT will never go for it, they're too risk averse. We pitched it to him, and at the end of the meeting he said, I want to see a BT logo on the roof, so fucking big, you can see it from the moon. So it was at that moment that we knew that we had a chance. However, when, you know, our euphoria subsided, we then thought, right, now we've got to build ourselves a studio. So everyone loves a time lapse. So this is what happened. So this is our first floor. This is the actual production office being built. And to give you some kind of context, when BBC moved into Salford, I think It was about 3 years in the planning, 2 years in the building. So, and this is something we're incredibly proud of. It took us just 18 weeks to do it. And we were ready for launch on the 1st of August. So, the most amazing thing to me was when we first flicked on the on switch, everything worked. It was very, very slow, admittedly, but you know, we could get a file out of the building in the way we'd intended to do it. And what had happened is we learned an awful lot from the struggles of IMG and from BBC, going from a tape-based workflow to a tapeless workflow. So we learned from all those mistakes. I have to give credit to Timeline TV as well, because it was their vision that helped us build it. And we put in EVS technology everywhere to handle our ingest and our archive. And it went from that to that in 18 weeks. So you can see why Stockley Park wasn't quite right for us. We needed a bit more space than they could offer. So at launch, I did a quick calculation before we got all this underway about a broadcast management system. And I started counting up the databases that we'd need to integrate with each other in order to give us a decent set of broadcast management tools. And once I got into double figures, I stopped. And I just thought, with everything we've got to do, building the place, buying the rights, scheduling everything, testing everything, if we also attempt a broadcast management system, one or two things could happen. We would very soon, we'd build something and then very quickly discover that it was not fit for purpose, because to put in a broadcast management system before you've decided what your workflows are is a recipe for disaster. And I can't remember what the other thing was. No, I'll give up on that. Anyway, so when we launched, we launched with 3 studios, 7 production control rooms, 20 edit suites, 100% tapeless, 3 sports channels, 80 full-time staff and 160 contract staff. And we're running the whole place on Google Docs, the free version, and Excel, albeit with some pretty clever macros. 1 year later, we're up to 4 studios. We had more production control rooms because we got the rights to the Champions League, more edit suites, more channels, more staff. But we still were running the place on Google Docs and Excel. Fast forward 5 years later. So we've added 6 extra channels, a UHD channel, enhanced digital player, VR, 360 viewer, all kinds of other stuff, and you guessed it, we were still running the place on Google Docs and Microsoft Excel. So enough was enough. All the staff were going crazy. They were all kind of looking at the managers and just saying that, you know, we're just double data entry and we're checking everything hundreds of times. Leon, who used to run the traffic team, when we started doing the Champions League, I think we brought in, was it 13,000 feeds in a year? So all those satellite details from all those feeds had to be checked and checked and checked and checked again to make sure that we didn't fall off the air, or that we got on the air in the first place. So you can imagine what an onerous task that was. So why we needed a broadcast management system? Well, we needed to get away from Google Docs and Excel. And what Provys did for us is it removed the need for that data entry and data checking. We used to use a scheduling system called Zeus, and we'd outgrown that. So our very, very strong-minded programming team decided that they wanted MediaGenix's What's On. I did ask permission that I could use a competitor's name in this presentation. But the really, really critical thing was that what we needed is, because those in sport will know that things change on a daily basis. So, you know, if the weather's bad or the match is postponed or Serie A who are the worst culprits, decide to move a kick-off time, then the rest of us, all that checking has to be redone. So that was the critical point, to have as good as real-time schedule changes flowing into Provys as we could get. That was absolutely critical to the whole point behind what we were trying to do with the broadcast management system. Oh, and I should also mention, the reason I've called it the Heart of Sport is because when we started the project, which also BT would like to give everything project names, we called it Project Barnard, named after Christian Barnard, the heart transplant surgeon, because effectively we were replacing the heart of BT Sport, which is why on the top slide it's putting Provys at the heart of BT Sport. Anyway, so what we needed, Sabina did a great job of taking you through the elements that we now have, but production management was critical. Having a view of where we are in the year with a production budget helps inform us about making decisions, because just like the schedule, things can change in programming as well. So if we've got a program that's not doing very well, and we decide that we should be doing something else, doing something better, knowing how much money we've spent at any given time is really critical for us, because that allows us to make that kind of decision about cancelling a show before Christmas, coming back on air with another better show in the same slot after Christmas. So all that side of thing is really important. So Provys really starts with the production management module as far as we're concerned. It allows us to budget, cost report, and also because it's a production manager's tool, it does things like generate call sheets, which any production manager will know is a very time-consuming business, including lots and lots of circuit information, lots and lots of travel details, mobile numbers, email addresses, all that stuff which had to be copied and pasted from somewhere. That's all gone. Resource booking and dispatching. This is something which really helped, Provys really helped us with, because it's part of it's the way Provys works is kind of driven by resourcing, and we were looking at it from the other way. So, you know, we told Provys to, you know, if we were doing something wrong, they should tell us, and this is one of the places where they really helped us and really guided us to get the right workflow. So when a production manager does their budget, it's full of loads of resources. So when the budget is signed off, what they then do is they grab the program that they're working on, which comes from Mediagenics. It flows into Provys. They grab that program and they start resourcing against it. So it's already in the schedule. It's already got a slot. It's already got a program number. And then they just start dragging people in, as you saw from the demonstration earlier. We use a lot of freelancers. So with every person that gets dragged in, it updates their contract. So we know what they've worked on, we know what we should be paying them. It also comes across with their rate. So it makes it very easy to pay them. Paying people at BT is very, very difficult. They're really good at buying 200,000 hard drives from Thailand, but they're really, really bad at paying one person for doing an edit shift on one day. So this has really helped us with that as well. What else has it got? BT new. So then, after the resources come in, that auto generates a mail which goes to the booking team. The booking team books a person, sends it, and that goes back to the production manager. The production manager says, yes, I want that person, or no, I don't want that person. And then we move on to the task management side of things, which is predator work schedule, compliance schedule, ingest schedule, creative schedule, filler schedule, loads and loads of stuff that not having to using our own people to specify their own requirements and those people being in the workshops to talk to the consultants from Provys was really, really important, because we were able to really shape Provys the way we wanted it by using the people that are actually going to use it, which is a great benefit to us. And of course, finally it became a replacement for Excel, Google Docs, and all the rest of it. You know, headaches went away, indigestion, other aches and pains, all that stuff. So where do we end up? So why Provys? We looked at, as part of the process, we looked at Provys' competitors, and in this case, it was Schedule All and Zytec. Schedule All, you know, good product, answered all the questions right. Then we said, right, we need to integrate with, you know, with the scheduling system, we need to integrate with Avid, we need to integrate with all kinds of bits and pieces, and they just went, hold on, we don't do that. So, because we needed so much help, because we're all a bunch of amateurs, we couldn't take them. So we asked them to go away. Zytec, they were a bit more proactive. They just tried to demo some kind of integration, and it just didn't work. And we got the life story of the CEO for half an hour instead, as they were trying to fix it. So we threw them out as well. When Provys showed up, we'd written a script for all the presentations, and Provys had studied it, put in an enormous amount of work, took us end to end through the script, and it was just a fantastic presentation. So we'd seen vendors from on the scheduling side and the MAM side, and hands down, the Provys presentation was absolutely fantastic. So it wasn't so great contracting with Provys. They were a bit scared because we were beefy and huge and loads of scary lawyers. So, but we got there in the end. But you know, I suppose that was only my tiny criticism. It was us really, because we'd projected this big scary monster of a company. So all in all, it was a company we could trust. So this was our workflow. I don't know if you can see it quite well. So this was our workflow before Broadcast Management System. So the green boxes is the scheduling system. The orange box is Microsoft, is Excel, Word, and Google Docs is the blue boxes. So obviously we needed to simplify that. So after we'd finished, it looked like that, which of course is much cleaner. And you can see just the volume of our workflow, which was now captured and operated by Provys. So, you know, it's fairly basic, but it's a very simple way to see just in pictures just how Provys helped us. And so we're now fully deployed. It took 6 months. As you saw from our studio bills, we like to do things in a hurry. We did put you know, quite a bit of pressure on Provys to deliver. They sent people to us when it was needed. We asked for feedback at the end, and we said, please be as honest as you like. And they said it would have been helpful if you hadn't started arguing in the workshops amongst yourselves. But, you know, that's part of not having a load of consultants driving the project. So because I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but because we'd get in a workshop and we'd have an idea of what we wanted to do, and Provys would go, why don't you do it that way? Of course, that sparked a discussion, which, you know, often turned into an argument, etc., etc. So those little bits probably slowed us down a little bit, but we still managed to do it in 6 months. So we've got 7 external suppliers doing the updates, including Arkiva, who handle ESPN playout for us. So as it goes through the chain, we've got Red Bee ticking off that they've received the media. We've got Arkiva doing the same. They're all looking at our MCR schedules. We've got Sunset and Vine doing ingest requests and making booking requests of our bookings team. We've got North One doing the same. So it's working extremely well. So we've got rid of Google Docs, we've got rid of Excel, and it's now the primary tool for 13 of our teams, and I think we've only got 14 teams, so that's not bad. What's in the future for us? Well, currently we're working on a MAN project, and we've chosen TDL. I'd be happy to answer any questions why we did that. So we've got a 7 petabyte content migration, which is fairly enormous. We're going to need a Provys integration to integrate with our MAN, and currently our desktop browsing is EVS IP browse, and we're hoping that TDL in time will enable us to phase that out. Other stuff we're working on, remote production is a big thing for us at the moment. I think it is with lots of sports companies. It actually doesn't, it sounds like it saves a hell of a lot of money. It doesn't really, if your country is quite small. So in America, I think ESPN have done 2,000 remote productions, but it saves them a fortune because of the huge distances they travel. You mainly save on moving people around the country. But we're working on it anyway. We will see some benefits. We're also looking at HD HDR and UHD HDR, which is the next big thing. Anybody who hasn't seen it, it's fantastic. And also there was a confidential thing which I can actually tell you about, which is object-based broadcasting, which for sport could be really interesting. I haven't got a slide, but I can give you an example. If anybody's, it would allow you, if you've got a big television and you've got, actually, if you've got a smaller television and the graphics you find quite intrusive, it'll allow you to slim down the size of the graphics, maybe taking away, if you've got a strip of MotoGP riders and all you want your name is their names and you don't want their numbers because you know who everybody is, you can hit a button and it'll just make it smaller. Really good for access services and for doing things like lowering the commentator and the effects mix and things like that. So that's another thing we're working out. On the remote production side, we've just done something called the BT Sport Pub Cup, where we filled all the cameras with SIM cards, and we sent the individual cameras back over 4G and cut the cameras 200 miles away from the stadium. And it worked quite well. It wasn't brilliant. I think it wasn't perfect, I should say, but it did work quite well. What we'd like Provys to do next, so this is from a user perspective. We'd like more HTML5, please. We'd like an undo button, so you can tell it's come from the users. We'd like a simple user permission wizard, because the user permissions are, we find, fairly tricky. We'd like user-defined build views. That's probably the most commonly asked question that our users would like to be able to return to something that they've moved around and set up the next time they open Provys. We'd like homepage widgets. We know that we can use the homepage for whatever we want. At the moment, it's just a big white page with Provys on it. So we'd like some clever bits and pieces that we can swap in and out. And also a report builder wizard would be absolutely great. Because this is from a producer's perspective, I'm going to show you a few clips. Let's see if this one works. this one. I'm really hoping this one works. So, so this is so using, as I was talking about earlier, using Provys gives the production managers more time, and I really think that coming up to the Champions League, it's our busiest time, especially with Liverpool in the final. I don't think we would have been able to make this next one because it took a day in the studio, 3 days in Kiev, 4 days in edit, and I think that all our production managers would have been flat out if they'd still be working on Google Docs and Excel.
That's it.
Thank you very much.